Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Hello, Trace. Coming up on the fastest UCF show around. A memorable comeback for UCF in Fort Worth. Did you stick around? Did you believe throughout the whole game? Did KJ Jefferson win you over? And did Fort Worth win Trace over? Or is Trace happy to have left Fort Worth? That's all coming up and much more here on Around the Kingdom.
Before we get going with all of that, Elo, let us welcome in the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF, keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Gentlemen, greetings. What a fantastic weekend. I cannot wait to listen to you both give us your takes on what happened here and there. So I will listen in intently, but have a great show, stupid.
A term of endearment now. All right, Elo, you mentioned it. Knights moved to 3-0 on this young season, 1-0 in the Big 12. An improbable comeback. Knights 35, TCU 34. What went right, Elo?
Oh, well, what went right? Certainly the running game. I mean, UCF just ran over TCU, especially in the second half. Harvey is clearly now the beast. He's the face of this team. But KJ Jefferson, we saw him make some plays. That's why Kobe Hudson made some plays. And defensively, they made some plays. They held TCU to a couple of safeties. I think Sonny Dykes and TCU helped out a little bit. That's usually what happens in the comeback. And, give credit to these players. And, they didn't bail. They didn't quit on this game. Unlike a certain percentage of the fan base that decided that they were going to stop to donate to the program and apparently go after people online at halftime. But, hey, that's what it's all about. You got to play through it.
KJ Jefferson, second half, that worked right. He ends up with 3 touchdowns, and that connection that he's got with Kobe Hudson is just lights out. You mentioned RJ Harvey earlier. Hey, harkens back to the Kevin Smith days. 29 carries, Elo, nearly 200 yards. Knights rushing attack just wears down TCU. So in that regard, a lot to like. Defensive adjustments, they bottled up whatever you can make of TCU's running game, but they did adjust and got more serious in their performance in the second half. And you mentioned it, and you saw it in the post-game videos. They didn't give up, right? And they certainly could have. And it's a comeback for the ages.
Is one of the great comebacks when you consider the Boise State game, Gus's first game in 2021. Think of the Louisville game in 2013, Trace. It's right up there. I think the Louisville game is the best one of the 3, but this one could be the second one because, this could set the stage really nicely for a great year. But, man, I'll say this. This offense has an identity, Trace, which I don't think either of the Gus teams have had before. You know what you're getting in this offense, and they stayed with it throughout the whole game, which led them to the comeback. Great win. Great win. But let's be honest. You know who you are out there. Did you click off when it was 28-7? You know who you are. Well, definitely a lot of people in the country did if you look at the numbers. We'll get to that down the road. But a lot of people on social media bailed. Trace, did you give up in the press box or did you still believe?
As is the case with a lot of things I do, I was kind of down the middle on this, Elo. I was overheard to have said, I think I need a new hobby. Because it was not a very enjoyable first half. You know what the moment was when I started to get more hopium? I started to believe was on a false start penalty, and RJ Harvey was mad. He was jumping up and down, waving his arms, and it was almost like a little spark for the team. And he got a little fiery, and that's when I started to believe they could mount a comeback. But I think going into this one, it was a question that we got on the mailbag during Sons of UCF Live. If the Knights are down, can they continue to run the ball? And they did, right? And they wore TCU down, and it set up other things. And, Gus Malzahn and coaches have been saying they're looking for how the team will respond to adversity. They responded.
I believe because I thought the 28-7 score is misleading because if it wasn't for some of the gaffes that we'll talk about, it should have been a closer game at halftime than it really was.
You mentioned a couple of comebacks there, down 28-7 in this one, Elo. Best comeback ever. You mentioned Louisville 2013. That one stands out. Hey, how about Gus's first game way into the wee hours of the morning and a comeback win over Boise State?
Were you at all 3? I know you were at Boise, and I know you were you at the Louisville game?
I was not at the Louisville game, was at a friend's wedding out in California, broke away from the wedding party to watch it in the bar in the fourth quarter.
Let me just say this. Anybody that schedules a wedding during football season deserves to get divorced years down the road.
They're still married. They're still married.
That's disappointing. Look, I think this is number 2. I still have the Louisville game up. Louisville was a top 10 team in the country with Teddy Bridgewater, Devontae Parker. They were the team everybody just assumed would win the American and get to the New Year's Six Bowl or whatever it was called back then. And I remember I was at a sports bar, and when they came back, it was so dramatic. Bortles to Godfrey, you kind of felt like, wow, we could actually get to New Year's Six. We could get to the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know what this one means yet. Maybe as the season goes on, if this team ends up playing for the Big 12 title game, maybe it surpasses that. But I still have Louisville number 1 as far as the great comeback there. But I do have this one ahead of Boise, Trace. I don't know how you feel. You have a unique perspective because you were at 2 of those 3 games.
I think that what's special about this is that it was on the road in a conference game, a season after we talk about, well, with Cincinnati, a real Big 12 win, the decisive win over Oklahoma State at home. This felt good to mount this comeback. That reverse Baylor, right? They shook that off from a season ago and showed that they could do this and come back. So I feel pretty good about it. And, you go into the bye week 3-0 with that conference win versus 2-1. And I'd rather go into the bye week. You enjoy this one for a couple of days, and then you shake it off. So, I wouldn't have wanted the hangover of a loss to carry into Colorado. So it is certainly one of the best comebacks ever, and I'm interested to hear from fans what they rank as their favorite comeback. As
long as they stuck around with it.
Yeah.
As long as they stuck around with it, they will be fine. And of course, one of the guys that led them, Trace, was KJ Jefferson. Got off to a bad start in the opener. People wondered what kind of impact. Boy, he made some throws. I know it doesn't look pretty all the time, but do you believe now, Trace, in KJ?
I said a week ago, right, that this type of game is why they brought him in. It wasn't victories over New Hampshire and Sam Houston State. I'm a trust is earned kind of guy, so it's going to take more over the course of this season, but I've gotten past the week 1, the first half jitters against New Hampshire. It's sort of in my rearview mirror. I want to see what he does next. I have more belief. I'm not saying I'm fully in at this point.
I'm in. Let me ask you this. Post Mackenzie Milton, what UCF quarterbacks had a better true road game win, better than what just KJ Jefferson just had? I would argue nobody. And here's the thing. Is he going to be pretty? No. Is he going to throw a perfect spiral? No. But let me ask you this, Trace. Do you remember at any point you're thinking, oh, my God, KJ almost got picked off there like we've had in the past? No. I think he protects the ball. He's tough. He'll take the tough yardage, and he's been there, done that. He was not fazed by that atmosphere. I told you about that. He's been there, and that throw to Kobe Hudson was beautiful. This guy will not be fazed by anything he sees the rest of the year.
You just said something very important there. Didn't turn over the ball. And when you protect the ball, right, there were things we're going to get to them that did not go right, but they survived all of those things. Not turning the ball over certainly contributed to that. Good friend of mine for many years, Tom, likes to ask this question. Does winning feel better than losing hurts? With that as the question, Elo, does the win here at TCU cancel out the home loss to Baylor a season ago? Which feels, what are the emotions there? Better on the win, or does the loss hurt more?
I think it depends on the perspective. First of all, we're now full-time Big 12 officially, right? Because this is Big 12 football in a nutshell. All these years we watched it, all the chaos, this is what it is. I think it's an interesting perspective. I believe a win like that is something you will remember forever, especially if you were there. If you were there, that's something that will stick with you. Anytime you go to Fort Worth, anytime you go to Dallas, there's that rush of winning that I think always wins. However, I understand the other side of it is if you were at the Baylor game in person like I was not in person at TCU, I'm probably going to remember the Baylor game more. So I think it depends on, were you there in person or were you not? You have a unique perspective because you were at both.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we dwell on the losing a little bit more and we don't appreciate the wins as much. You mentioned the Louisville game 2013. You think about the magic of 2013, 2017. Sometimes things just got to bounce your way. There's got to be a little luck, right? And the contrast here, TCU, 2 seasons ago, great season, won a lot of close games. What happened a year ago? Lost all their one-possession games, and now they've lost another. So those moments like that can be the difference between a special season and an average or worse season. and how it would have been different for UCF had we been talking about them being 2-1 and a road loss in their opener and Big 12 play. That's how it can turn by mounting that comeback and making it for a very special moment.
I do think this is better than it does offset the Baylor loss, because this could set up a special year. Plus, it's the most recent thing, right? Your emotional is the most recent thing. And let's be real. Last year, I don't think there was the expectations like they are with this team this year about, hey, maybe we could make the playoffs and win the Big 12 or contend.
And are you sure that they weren't 7-5 even with the Baylor win? I mean, was it going to be an 8-9 win season?
How big of a difference was that? You were already without your quarterback. Here, you look at the schedule like, ooh, we could win 9-10 games here, perhaps. That's certainly a memorable moment for everybody that was there in Fort Worth. My question, though, is, was it memorable for Trace? Trace, give us a review. Fort Worth, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, I just got to tell you, it's right next to Dallas, okay? So it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere. It's not like you land in Kansas City and drive 110 miles to Manhattan, Kansas to see Kansas State. So major metropolitan city, easy to fly into, perfectly fine, plenty of great food, plenty to drink. There's plenty to do. Robert Aronoff, my partner there on the coverage for Sons of UCF, he lives there, so convenient for him. I think this was a good road trip for a lot of UCF fans, especially to kick things off. And impressive was the TCU campus and the stadium. So thumbs up for me. No issue going there again. And I think fans were treated right. Of course, it helps to get the comeback win.
And I think that's why a lot of people go back, right, for that. And certainly Robert has to enhance the experience. By the way, two of the best UCF sporting victories in the last calendar year in that Fort Worth Arlington era. UCF baseball. Think about the run in the Big 12 tournament. Think about the win against TCU. Robert was at both. If I'm UCF, I'm making sure Robert's at every UCF event in person. That's all I'm saying. Man has the magical twist there.
That's magic to his ears. All right. We talked about all that went right, but Elo, there were some major what went wrongs in this game. Let's talk, special teams, block kicks. Not one, not two. How many? 3? I've never seen anything like that.
I've been watching football since the mid-'80s, and I've never seen that before. It was just surreal. Usually one block, two block. And that's why when I mentioned earlier, I didn't feel like a 28-7 was a fair score because UCF kept moving the ball. It just special teams self-destructed. And I felt the whole game, while I didn't think the game was over, I'm thinking, wow, those 3 kicks, right? Normally, that cost you the game. That's what I thought for sure that would be the dominant focal point of the postgame, which would have been had they lost that game. But because they come back and won that game, it's almost a footnote. But it is a concern. This special teams, man, get it together. If there's a group that needs this bye week, it is the special teams, Trace, because I don't think you can get away, and I don't expect 3 block kicks, I hope not anyway, again to ever happen again. But this special teams has shown to have some leakage over the years. That's got to be cleaned up.
Defensively, again, I don't think we put a lot of stock in what we saw in the New Hampshire and Sam Houston games, but this a greater test. Bottled up the running game. Not that TCU perhaps has much of one. They haven't shown much of a running game in the early part of the season. But UCF's defense got picked apart by TCU quarterback Josh Hoover, right? More than 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. You think ahead, we'll talk more about the Colorado game next week. That concerns me. And defensively, where's the pass rush? Defensive coordinator Ted Roof was, it's more than just a sack total. Yeah, okay, 1 sack through 3 games. I'm a little concerned about the pass rush, absence of John Walker along the defensive line.
I would argue Sonny Dykes was UCF's best defensive person because I thought he should have run the ball more. And to me, the biggest play of the game, the 3rd and goal at the 1 where there was a false start because Hoover was going with a hard count for some reason. Like, why are you going to hard count on 3rd and goal 1? I think if TCU punches that in, they probably hold on to win that game. Instead, they fall back 5 yards, settle for a field goal, and it kept the door open for UCF to make that comeback.
Game of margins, right before they missed the 58-yard field goal, they miss a short pass that would have brought the ball up a little bit further. You don't know how the freshman's going to react at kicking, the kicker. He pushes it wide right, but he seemed to have some distance on it. How would he have felt if it was a couple yards closer? So there are things to work on, but you'd still rather be 3-0 than be Sonny Dykes and TCU. All right, time to bring back in Adam and our silly game.
And don't forget, gents, the Steeler game brought to you by our good friends at the Cure Bowl, December 20th, Camping World Stadium. The matchup is Orlando versus Cancer. You'll also catch a really good football game as well. So make sure you go to curebowl.org right now. Sign up, get your tickets. You can support that. There'll be festivities going on all around there, so you don't want to miss out. Again, curebowl.org is how you get your tickets. All right, gents, easy game this week. I just have some questions. No trickery, nothing, no tomfoolery. Just
I was waiting for
questions.
UCF players in the CFL. I thought that was
okay.
where this was going.
All right, here's the first one. Eli, I'm going to start with you. What is the perfect number of throws for KJ Jefferson to attempt in a game?
22 throws. 22 throws. I don't think it's a guy that you want to have 35, 40 throws. I think you're a run-first guy. I think he can get you a handful of carries himself. I think 22, ideally, with the running game going the way it is more than efficient, and it worked. It's been working. You don't need to force the issue. And plus, I don't think he has the depth of talent at the wideouts that says, let's sling it for like 40 passes.
Yeah, I mean, 25 or less. I mean, Josh Hoover, TCU's quarterback, 52 throws because they couldn't run the ball, right? So I think we have seen what Gus wants to do. Run, control the clock, control the tempo, wear the other team down. You don't need KJ to throw much. I don't think he is a game manager, though. Like, I've seen some reference to that he's, Kyle Israel, just, game manager. I don't think he's that, but less than 25.
All right, Trace, this one starts with you. Give me a percentage chance that RJ Harvey could become a Heisman finalist, not win the award, just become one of the final 4 or 5 individuals up for the Heisman this year.
He's still overlooked in the national conversation, which goes to show you something about the UCF brand. It's going to be at some point this season hard to ignore his statistics if he keeps up on the pace that he has. And what will benefit that is, of course, UCF wins. 50% that we see him at the ceremony. I feel pretty good about RJ. He's underrated.
20%. This is a quarterback award. I think Cam Ward of Miami, Dart, the kid from Ole Miss, pick your Texas quarterback, the winner of the Alabama, Georgia. I just think this is a quarterback award. It's about the brand. Trace alluded to that. I think RJ Harvey's kind of like Ollie Gordon last year, who helped carry Oklahoma State. But all it took was one bad performance in Orlando, and you're not even in the conversation. And unfortunately for RJ, I think that's what it is as well. All it takes is one bad game, and he gets dismissed. I'm not even sure he's the best. He's the top Heisman candidate right now in the Big 12.
All right, Elo, I'll take this one back to you. You guys were just talking about this a little bit, but what are you more concerned about right now on defense? The defensive line or the secondary?
Can the answer be yes? All the above. Look, defensive line. It starts there. If you don't have a pass rush, then you're making life difficult for the secondary, and that is a concern. I don't know where that pass rush is. Do you have to blitz more if you're Ted Roof? They're supposed to be more aggressive, right? That's what we were told. Pride is more aggressive, more pressure. I haven't seen that yet. Now it's one opponent. TCU did a good job with Kendall Briles of quick releases. But I will go with defensive, but I have concerns on both sides.
I have concerns on both sides, especially welcoming in Colorado. And how is the secondary going to be challenged by Colorado's quarterback? But we didn't see much to worry about in the first 2 games from the secondary, but we have seen that concern over 3 games for the defensive line. So put me in on the defensive line.
All right, last one. This weekend, gentlemen, the Tennessee Volunteers, coached by former UCF coach Josh Heupel, are going to play Oklahoma, where some might remember Josh Heupel played, was famously a coach, and was famously dismissed by Bob Stoops. So, Trace, if you could have any revenge matchup, what's your dream revenge matchup? Either pro sports, college sports, maybe it already happened, but you want to see it happen. What's the revenge match you'd love to see happen?
Well, I suppose in the short term, I'd like to see UCF beat Baylor when they get that opportunity next year on their turf. So a little revenge for that. I'd have to think bigger picture, not that they're going to play, but at some point, right, Georgia Southern owns UCF. Maybe they end up somewhere along the line. It'd be nice to notch a victory in that series.
I'm going to go with one Adam really can appreciate. The Heat kicked the Celtics' ass. It's back, right? I'm sick of the Celtics celebration nonsense in pro sport. Woo, Boston. That's a little tiresome. I'll go collegiately. I would say UCF softball beating Florida State would be fantastic. I'm sick of going to the Tallahassee Regional, Trace. Really am. Very tired.
I don't blame you.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you, Adam. All right, Elo. Warp drive. We got 10 minutes. Go.
All right. Trace, with this win, UCF 3-0, 1-0 in the Big 12. Do you a believer now? UCF is a Big 12 contender.
Not yet. Not yet. I've been talking, though, that this TCU game was a concern for me for a long time. They're going to have to do more than beat TCU in an epic comeback. So not yet. Not yet. You?
I'm more optimistic. Here's why. I think Colorado is a favorable matchup. I think you look at the Big 12. Arizona doesn't scare you as much. They got trounced by Kansas State. I think the schedule is favorable. 5 of the 8 games at home. 9-10 wins is possible. I think that's in the conversation for the Big 12 title game. I think this is a top 4, top 5 Big 12 team, assuming there's not a serious injury to KJ Jefferson or anybody like that. But I'm optimistic. I actually feel more optimistic because of this identity they have on offense.
Well, let's shift over to a conversation about the Big 12. Kansas State, you mentioned them a moment ago, big win over Arizona in a primetime game on Fox on Friday. They're an early impressor in the Big 12.
I think they are. At Kansas State, you could argue right now maybe he's one of the top 2 Big 12 teams. They can do it all on both sides of the ball. The good news for UCF is they don't play them on the schedule. Utah's been battling some injuries. Cam Rising got hurt. Supposedly might be back for this big game against Oklahoma State this Saturday. That's huge because I think the winner of that game perhaps jumps up to being that other contender as far as co-favorites in the Big 12 title game, which also could affect the UCF Colorado TV time. But I like Kansas State. I think they're well coached. I think they have the best coach. If you don't count Kyle Whittingham because he just got into the Big 12, I think Kleiman at Kansas State is probably the best Big 12 coach that has been there a while. I'm impressed with him.
Well, let's stay in Kansas. Hey, Kansas, you can't lose at home to UNLV, no matter how good an early start to the season UNLV is having. You can't drop that game, and now they're 1-2, and it's early. You can't read too much into any of these things, but that's a bad loss for
West
Kansas
Virginia
football.
blew it against Pittsburgh in their rivalry game there. Lost a lead. There's some shaky teams. This Big 12, not a great league. I think it's winnable, and I think that's why I'm more optimistic on the UCF side with the scheduling the way it plays out. But if you're the Big 12, not necessarily ideal because I'm not sure anybody in the country is talking about the Big 12 at this point. Maybe that will change with Utah, Oklahoma State this week, and then the following week, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Maybe we get some buzz there. But, man, I do think Kansas State might be the best team right now, especially if Utah continues with their injury issues.
But how about that? A couple weeks in, and we're talking about expansion again.
Oh, man, that's just whose idea was this, folks? What, folks? Yes, the Pac-12 supposedly coming out of the dead, adding Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. They are looking for more. Trace, your reaction on the new pack?
Yeah, 6-pack. They need some more teams, though. And what's interesting, if I have this right, Elo, UNLV, they like UNLV, right? They like them in Vegas. They like that team. But there's something in the state of Nevada where they have to take Nevada with them. And I don't think the Pac wants Nevada, right? Is that the story? So that's why
Correct.
UNLV is not getting that out. They'll figure it out. It's not your old Pac-12.
I can't wait till they invite the Cows to go to the Pac. Can you imagine the Cows going cross country every game?
SMU in the ACC, South Florida in the
Jesus.
It's a mess.
I mean, they're plucking from the Mountain West of the American. There's reports that Memphis might be the next target, and Tulane. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Air Force to the American is mentioned. Boy,
well, you might as well complete the entire academy.
Hey, kudos to you. You're off to a 2-0 start in our scheduled draft. Now, you had New Hampshire. You had TCU.
Never a doubt.
Huge for you. And you've got the lead 2-1. I haven't had any games yet, but Adam goes back on the clock with that Colorado game. What may do me in is that roadie at Arizona State later on in the season. All right, Elo, we shift over to props. Can I just keep us up to date on the Randy Pittman watch? He had a couple catches. He's up to 5 through 3 games. He's got a pace of 20, which would be under the 24.5.
It's getting close.
How'd we do on last week's? You got the TV numbers hot off the presses.
I won, but I don't feel like a winner because we all were way off. UCF TCU, in case you missed it, did 1.03 million viewers. That finished fourth out of the 4 network games in that same time slot. Colorado State, 3.2 million. UCLA, Indiana was watched by 1.4 in NBC. What? And then Kentucky, Georgia, good Lord, 6.6 million. Of all the broadcast network games UCF has always been on, ABC and Fox, this is the second lowest UCF football telecast on broadcast television, ABC or Fox. The only one did lower, the COVID year, 2020 against East Carolina on ABC, did less than 1 million. Not a good number, Trace. Not a good number for supposedly two markets in Orlando and Fort Worth, which the Big 12 is counting on for TV viewership.
All right, what's the prop this week? We're shifting over to soccer with football high.
Goalkeeping. Who doesn't get excited about goalkeeping?
Good goalkeeper.
Which goalkeeper you think will get the most saves this week on the road? UCF men's soccer starting Sunbelt play on the road at James Madison. Women's soccer starting at Iowa State. Who you got, Trace?
Give me women's soccer and
Genesis.
UCF Scully. Yeah, I'll go with UCF Scully. 5 saves on the road.
You're picking him to have more saves than Shane Wright. I'll go with Shane Wright of the men's team just because I have some questions about the back line on the men's team, so there might be some more opportunities. I don't think you want to win this category necessarily if you're a goalkeeper because it means you're getting a lot of action there. So we'll see
that is true. Segueing to the Olympic sports roundup, volleyball finally at home, Elo. They've been road warriors for the last couple of weeks. They dropped their first one of the season in Tallahassee to number 21 FSU, and soccer women had a good one, winning their Big 12 opener 5-0. But the men get up to 10. They're allergic to top 10 rankings.
They're allergic to ranking. They're unranked now. What a wacky week for the men's team. Going to shootout against FIU, lose 4-3 in a high-scoring game, then come back against South Florida and have a scoreless draw. With no offense. But the bigger concern, Trace, another injury to UCF men's soccer. Timothy Arias, the defender, left the game with an injury. Trace, at some point, this is getting too much, I think, for anybody.
Yeah, they need to have Luca Dorado back. Too soon to say whether he'll play in the Sun Belt opener at James Madison, but the injuries are starting to pile up, Elo. You hate to see it, but soccer now entering Sun Belt play. Women on the road for the first time in Big 12 play. They have a strange schedule, right? Thursday on the road at Iowa State, come back high noon Sunday against Arizona State. That ought to be sweltering out at the UCF soccer complex.
Legs, Sunday legs. You hear soccer coaches talk about whoever has better Sunday legs. Usually that's the difference between having a successful year. Coach Sahedek wants a lot of depth. That's why you need that. The encouraging thing about the Houston win, somebody other than Chloe Netzel actually scored. If they can continue that, they got a good shot in the Big 12. If they have to depend on Chloe Netzel, not so much. They must, I think, win both of these. Iowa State's in the 200s in the RPI. You don't want to dig yourself a loss like that with the tougher teams ahead later on in the year.
Win them when you're supposed to. All right, time to bring back in Adam. Adam, how are your Sunday legs?
Trace, don't ever ask me that again. All right, here's what I got for corrections. And fun facts, by the way, RJ Harvey won the Doak Walker Running Back Award this week. So he's the Doak Walker winner for this week. You talked about people who thought it was over, Trace. Check out the Sons UCF podcast, available now wherever you get downloadable content. Episode 271. UCF Mike reveals his top 5 Twitter quitters, of which somebody on this show may be featured. Elo, you asked about a potential quarterback going on the road. I submit to you as an option. John Rice Plumlee, 2022, went and beat number 17 Tulane at Tulane 38-31. I don't know if it gets to the KJ level, but that would be another possible contender there. Blocked kicks. I can't find a record for blocked kicks in a game, but here's what I do know. In the NFL last season, only 8 extra points were blocked total all year long, every team in the NFL. So we have a little bit of an issue here at UCF. According to Yahoo, Elo, Cam Rising is expected to play this weekend for Utah. You guys talked about Pitt, by the way. Did you know they're actually leading the Big 12? They are 2-0 in the Big 12, despite being in the ACC. And last but not least, the Pac-12 added 3 teams that actually aren't states: Fresno State, San Diego State, and Boise State to go along with Colorado State. I don't know how that all works.
And self-correction here. I think I got it wrong on the tight end receptions. Pittman had 3. So 3 + 2 + 1, it should be 6. Back on the pace, Elo, of 24, which would be right near the 24.5. One more thing before we go. UCF running back RJ Harvey racking up the accolades. The night standout running back, not only the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week for his 183 rushing yard performance against TCU, but he's also the Doak Walker National Running Back of the Week, semifinalist for that award, named for the nation's best running back. For new episodes midweek, every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Drops later wherever you get your audio content. For Adam Eaton and Eric Lopez, I'm Trylko. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this week's Around the Kingdom.